This story is about a town, a small town, and the people who live in the town. From a distance, it presents itself like many other small towns all over the world. Safe, decent, innocent. Get closer though, and you start seeing the shadows underneath. The name of this town is Riverdale. Fansville. Yeah, Fansville. You know, the goofy little commercials that play during football season that are like a parody of every teen drama out there. Each spot acts like a little teaser for some non-existent episode featuring some residents of this town that thrives on Dr. Pepper and loves college football. I wouldn't blame you if you never put that much thought into them. I didn't either. If you asked me 2 months ago if these even had recurring characters, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But call it sheer curiosity or stupidity. One day I couldn't help but wonder if there was some deeper ongoing through line in these little bite-sized clips. And sure enough, there was. Not only was there an actual narrative, but I mean it when I said there were shadows in the background. Secrets yet to be unearthed. After combing through these 30 episodes multiple times, drawing timelines, breaking down character backstories, designing maps, and tracking the actual genealogical history of the town at large, I've come to the only logical conclusion. This series is not about a town that celebrates Dr. Pepper. It's about a town that's crying for help. You see, while Fansville presents itself as a peaceful utopia where everyone gets along and comes together under the banner of loving college football, this series actually sees the slow unraveling of that idea. Characters fall out of love with this town and its strict customs and traditions, whether that be by finding a new favorite sport or overcommitting to their fandom and alienating their loved ones. This town is a thinly veiled dystopian nightmare where its residents are molded into what is believed a quote-unquote good fan should resemble. And if you think that's crazy, get this. I can prove that the Dr. Pepper is actually a means of mind control for the town's residents. It's what's keeping them complacent and blissfully unaware. Now, I'm sure you're thinking that Dr. Pepper as a company would never create an ad campaign that purposely paints them in a bad light, but I posture this. Did you ever notice? If I wasn't out here doing the Lord's work, would you have ever given it a second thought? Exactly. You became just as passive as the rest of Fansville's residents. Just taking in the fun and the football and the Dr. Pepper without ever taking the time to consider the implications. Today, I'm changing all of that. Big Cola can't hide anymore. The day of reckoning is now. I'm coming for you, Dr. Pepper. It's time to set Fansville free. Now, for those that don't know, Fansville was launched in the fall of 2018, just in time for college football season to start. The commercials would seek to replace the longtime spokesperson Larry Culpepper, played by Jim Connor, which focused on a vignette-style storytelling showing the little mundanities he'd faced during his shift as a Dr. Pepper vendor at the local football stadium. He rose through the ranks, from lowly vendor to celebrated icon on and off the screen. What made him so appealing was arguably his status as an everyman, or an every fan. I'll stop. He was relatable, he was goofy, but he had a good heart, and a catchphrase that straddled the line hard between charming and downright obnoxious. Let's go, Dr. Pepper! But come 2018, Dr. Pepper announced it did not intend to produce any new Larry Culpepper shorts. The reasoning for this seemed to be a refocusing of its advertising to be more exaggerated, hyperbolic. Something to more blatantly poke fun at the more general things fans do when celebrating college football, rather than just focusing on one superfan's perspective. To quote a press release from Dr. Pepper announcing the change, Larry Culpepper has been a great part of our Dr. Pepper college football sponsorship for the past 4 years, helping us introduce the college football playoff to fans in 2014. With the renewal of our college football sponsorship, we've decided to take our football-related advertising in a creative new direction as we introduce Fansville. We are as committed as ever to our college football partnership as we head to the 150th anniversary of the game. We are looking forward to engaging and exciting fans in new ways. The new advertising initiative was spearheaded by a digital advertising agency called Dutch. The TV spots aired throughout football season on ESPN, CBS, and Fox, and ranged from 15 seconds to 30 seconds to a minute, presented like a parody of a serialized daytime drama. In its initial pitch, Dr. Pepper promised that each episode in every season would build on the last, culminating in a climactic season finale that would air during the national championship game. The series saw 10-time Emmy Award nominee and writer behind Portlandia and Tim and Eric, Jonathan Creasel, direct each episode in the 2018 to 2019 season, before it passed the reins to the Lonely Island's own Jorma Taccone for Season 2 from 2019 to 2020, and then returned to Creasel for all other episodes up to the present. Another quote from Derek Dabrowski, Vice President of Dr. Pepper Brand Marketing at Keurig Dr. Pepper. Fansville further solidified our long-standing commitment to college football, as we eagerly kick off the 2018 to 2019 season. Fansville is where college football is 24/7, 365. And Dr. Pepper is fueling that incredible fandom, the fans' hope, rivalry, and competition every step of the way. Another quote from Brett Craig, Executive Vice President and Executive Creative Director of Dutch. We understand the emotional roller coaster that is the college football fandom, and we brought this to life through a sensational drama TV series. We can't wait for fans to get sucked into the drama of Fansville. While I wouldn't necessarily this change truly excited people, fans were naturally lured into the quirky and soap operatic world of Fansville, but there was just as vocal of a crowd that vehemently despised the new direction. Such scathing comments as, "At Dr. Pepper, you killed Larry Culpepper for this steaming pile of crap Fansville concept? Delete your account." And, "So where's Larry Culpepper? Does he live in Fansville?" That last tweet does bring up an interesting point, though. No, don't go down that rabbit hole. Stick to the mission. This video is going to be long enough anyways. I think that's enough context for now. Let's dive headfirst into this thing that, either way you look at it, nobody really cares that much about. This is going to be a massive waste of time, isn't it? We're first introduced to the city of Fansville with shots of several locations in and around town, including the Fansville Stadium, downtown businesses, and the residential suburbs. By comparing screenshots to the aerial view and using the position of the water tower, we can surmise that Fansville is surrounded by mountains and is largely cut off from surrounding cities. Let's hope its residents don't start going stir-crazy. Fansville has the layout and culture of a college town, home to State University College. As our narrator explains,
"Where every day is Saturday, and everyone is a fan. Literally everyone."
The narrator opens and closes each episode with the typical fluff you'd expect in a Next Time On teaser. It's rarely worth commenting on until the later seasons, where I'll have a bit more to say about it. Next up, we're quickly introduced to some of those aforementioned fans, who will round out our main cast of characters going forward. Probably the most recognizable character in each season is Sheriff Bosworth, the town sheriff played by real-life former Seattle Seahawks player Brian Bosworth. This happens a lot with guest characters, having the same name as their actors who are retired athletes or coaches, but they aren't playing themselves. If you think too much about it, your brain's gonna melt, so let's just move on. Back to Boz as a character, he's a down-to-earth man on the right side of the law, dedicated to serving the residents of Fansville and doing anything to uphold any values that support drinking Dr. Pepper and celebrating State U football. Next we have what I'll call the CJ family, which consists of an officially unnamed mother and father and their teenage son, CJ, played by Braxton Ryan Baker, who is one of the few characters in the show to actually have an official name. CJ's dad, played by Jason Wiles, is a conservative father with traditional values. Like a lot of Fansville's residents, he seeks worth and value through two things. One, doing good at college football, and two, drinking Dr. Pepper. His wife, CJ's mom, played by Kate French, is very much the same, but with a few caveats. We'll get to her in a minute. And CJ is about that age where he should be starting to decide on college. He's a bit rebellious, as he's growing an interest for different sports, including soccer and later lacrosse. Obviously, this will create some tension later on. Arguably the biggest fans in Fansville are Jay, a self-described grill master played by All-Americans Jay Reeves, who takes immense pride in his burger flipping skills and his famous tailgates, and Natalie, played by Natasha Mark, a quiet waitress at the Fansville diner. These two bond over their shared love of cooking and food, and we'll see how a sweet, wholesome romance develops in this town of drama and secrets. No, I'm serious. Then there's the husband and wife officially named State Fan Husband and State Fan Wife in IMDb episode descriptions, but also referred to as Logan and Lily by other characters in episodes. They're played by Nick Ballard and Lily Piper Fay, respectively. You'll see why later, but Logan quickly becomes my favorite character on the show. He and his wife start out the show as new parents, but they're in an obviously unequal relationship. I don't want to spoil how just yet, but let's just say his Joker arc is coming. Fast. There's the Doctor, with no other official name to use, played by former Tennessee Titans running back and current Tennessee State head football coach Eddie George. He's most easily identified by his soda can hat that he wears at all times. He operates at a hospital in the town and seems to be a specialist in everything from child delivery to broken bones to neural disorders to head injuries. He's impartial to college affiliation when treating patients, but does clearly give a preference to state fans by providing more high-end treatments and dedicated care. You'll see. And lastly, there's the two forbidden lovebirds, Ramon and Julia, played by Riverdale's own Joaquin Dos Santos, aka Rob Rako, and an actress whom I can't find the name of. Sorry. If it's not clear from their character names, their story is one of two star-crossed lovers driven apart by their team affiliation. Julia is a fan of State U, while Ramon is a mascot for the rival team, Tech. They're often seen engaging in secret rendezvous in the dead of night, and they serve as audience's first sign that the culture and the rules of Fansville seem to supersede individual wants. Their journey, like many others, is about escaping from Fansville. Now that everyone's in their starting positions, let's finally get into the meat of the first season. The official trailer for Season 1 is the first chronological point in the series. It includes a tease of several upcoming episodes, as well as these few unique establishing scenes that set the status quo for several of our main characters. We see Logan mowing his front yard, and Natalie serving Sheriff Bosworth at the diner, both greeting people by saying, "Go State."
Go State! Go State! Go State!
Go State.
At a State U tailgate, we see Julia first lock eyes with Ramon, as he takes off the Tech mascot platypus head in stunning slow motion. She longingly says,
I hate Tech.
without breaking eye contact. A romance sparks. At the same tailgate, Natalie and Jay have a meet cute as they reach for the same can of Dr. Pepper. CJ's family sits around the kitchen table as his dad mentions that the selection committee has put State U in the top 10. He thinks this could be their season to go all the way, and his family cheers. We also meet two incidental characters for this season at the gas station, a former state coach named Les Miles. Yes, that's actually former LSU coach Les Miles, but not actually. Again, don't think too much about it. And a guy in a Dr. Pepper red morph suit that I ended up dubbing Bodysuit Fan. I'm sure they're not important, so let's move on. Episode 102, Ramon and Julia, sees the titular characters meeting underneath the stands during a State versus Tech game. Julia seems hesitant to embrace her feelings for Ramon, but he offers an olive branch. They have a shared love of Dr. Pepper. It's implied that Dr. Pepper is something much more important to Fansville than any other cities or teams, as the subtext here suggests he's leaning into something that's important to her. As they're about to lean in for a kiss, State scores, and Julia pulls back, taunting Ramon. Episode 103, Family Huddle, features CJ's family. His mom and dad enter his room to confront him about a soccer magazine they found. His dad explains that it's a, quote, gateway sport, and next thing he knows, CJ will be playing lacrosse.
Go State! Mom, Dad.
This guy's like a prophet, I swear. The verbiage implies that sport affiliation is akin to drug use, but his mom suggests it's perfectly normal to, quote, experiment at his age, and that she's, quote, even tried other sodas.
I even drank other sodas.
There's other sodas?
This suggests that sports or sodas are a metaphor for different sexualities, like a spectrum. It's messy. The point is two things. One, CJ's father's disapproval of his son's interest is driving a wedge between him and his son. And two, his mom falls somewhere in between. She stands beside her husband, but still supports her son's interests. This and another episode this season suggests that she's not as in line with following the strictly traditional way of, quote, being a good fan. Episode 104, Champ Cakes, is 7 seconds long and just shows Natalie serving Sheriff Bosworth a plate of pancakes.
Champ cakes.
We're moving on. Episode 105, Blindsided, shows Logan and Lily giving birth to their first child, a baby boy. Doctor presents him to the couple, proclaiming,
It's a fan!
But the twist? The baby is outfitted head to toe in Tech memorabilia.
That's a Tech fan.
Logan obviously asks his wife what's happening as she sips her Dr. Pepper suspiciously. In case it wasn't obvious enough, the baby isn't his. Logan is a cuckold. This episode satirizes the idea of a baby looking nothing like the parents. The illegitimate spawn, that I've decided to name Tech Fan Child, presents an interesting question though. Logan's such a devoted fan. In a town that rewards fandom, what would make someone want to cheat? Especially with a fan of the rival team. Episode 106, Heatwave, is our answer to the question, and is also our first crossover storyline between CJ's mom and Natalie. They're sharing a sip of Dr. Pepper on a porch, looking longingly at their neighbor, Bodysuit Fan, as he mows his lawn and pumps his fist in the air randomly. CJ's mom, a married woman, says,
That's what a real fan looks like.
implying some level of dissatisfaction with her current husband. The idea of a quote-unquote real fan is interesting. Someone who revels in the fun of the game and just cheers to cheer. That's a clear contrast to CJ's father, who is all about celebrating within a very clear set of traditions and valuing your team's good standing. Natalie says this makes them bad fans.
We're bad fan.
But that doesn't mean that Fansville itself legally enforces these strict traditional values, right? Right? We'll get to that. Episode 107, Superstitious, shows CJ's family on the couch watching a state game, awkwardly switching spots to match how they were sitting the last time they won. It feels weird to watch them all together after the tension and family huddle, but take a look at their hand placement. Dad has both hands in front, aimed at the television, while Mom has her arm only on Dad's shoulder. Meanwhile, CJ holds onto his mom's shoulder, but she doesn't reciprocate. It 100% accurately reflects the dynamic I outlined earlier of a distant father and an anti-authority teenager that is clearly closer to his mother, who supports him but still sides with her husband. Episode 108, X-Ray, shows Jay and Natalie, now apparently in an at least semi-committed relationship, sitting in the hospital as Doctor tells them
it's a grade 3 sprain
in his grilling hand. Natalie insists they need a proof positive, fast treatment, and she calls Jay's hot dogs amazing. But Jay isn't willing to grill with his right hand, because as Natalie explains,
that's his Dr. Pepper hand!
The ever so partial doctor gives Jay a helmet much like his own. He tries to flip a burger with his Dr. Pepper hand, but struggles too hard and drops it on the table. Comedic gold. This is bizarre. Not only is Doctor actually out of the office helping rehabilitate a patient, but this seems to imply that Dr. Pepper isn't just something people crave. It's necessary. Jay is hooked up to his Dr. Pepper hat like it's a life support machine. There's no way that's actually true, though, and there's not much that I can prove about that at this point. Episode 109, Encroachment, is our first real venture into the Fansville suburbs. It gives us a chance to nail down some of the geography and figure out who lives where. It starts with Logan and Lily knocking on presumably their neighbor, Sheriff Bosworth's door. He's asked to mitigate a situation.
It's the new neighbors, Sheriff. They're referees.
A family of referees moving in across the street. Sheriff wants to give them a chance as they're unpacking cases of Dr. Pepper. He goes over to introduce himself and...
Offsides!
That wasn't very neighborly.
Although this looks like a simple joke, something tells me that the referees aren't just a buzzkill, and work in a more official capacity within Fansville. But we need to get a little deeper before I elaborate. As a side note, the sheriff uses the term
Holy Tuscaloosa
as an exclamation, which I thought was neat. Episode 110, Unusual Suspects, serves as the epic 2-part season finale. The first is a 30-second commercial that's tacked on to the second part, so there's not much you're missing if you just skip the first half. This tells the story of Sheriff Bosworth investigating the case of the missing college football playoff national championship trophy. He starts investigating several potential suspects. We see more of Sheriff and Logan's friendship as they discuss the case in confidence, saying,
Who would steal the trophy?
You'd have to be a big fan.
Logan draws his line, saying that,
Of course I want the trophy, I'm a fan, but I'm not a criminal.
keep that distinction in mind for later. We see CJ's parents pointing fingers at each other, again exhibiting that their marriage is not as trusting and as healthy as it once was. We see Sheriff interrogating both Ramon and a referee, even coercing Ramon into wearing a wire on one of his secret rendezvous with Julia.
Are you wearing a wire? Are you wearing a wire?
It doesn't go well. Boz is eventually pointed in the direction of a man named Ray, who I've nicknamed Ticketman for obvious reasons. He appears to be serving jail time in a ticket booth at the Fansville Stadium, dressed head to toe in an orange jumpsuit like this is an actual jail cell. This is a lot. I'll save it for the analysis section. Anyway, Ray gives it away point blank.
Les Miles took the trophy. Duh.
Of course! The incidental character played by a very well-known person we only saw once this season. Who could have guessed? Sheriff confronts Les Miles at the gas station. The quote-unquote legendary coach is standing next to the stolen trophy on the roof.
Why are you on the roof, Coach?
I thought it'd be dramatic.
Well, it is.
He's asked to be referred to by his criminal persona, the Mad Hatter, before being struck by lightning and falling off the roof. The season ends with Sheriff Bosworth taking a fried, but alive, Les Miles into custody. The trophy is saved, and order is maintained within Fansville. There's a few things I want to tackle about the town itself before getting to the main point of the season. For some background, the city of Fansville resides within Fansville County, as noted on the side of Sheriff Bosworth's cruiser. Its centerpiece, State University College, was established in 1885, as referenced on merchandise around town. That's canonically the same year that Dr. Pepper was established, in both Fansville and in real life. But that doesn't necessarily mean Fansville didn't exist before this. In fact, I think it was a much different place before the foundation of State U. The next, and probably most obvious point, is that this is a town where everybody is a fan, specifically of State U, so much so that it's consumed their personality. As seen in episode 105, Blindsided, every person in Fansville is assigned as a fan at birth. It's made clear by the tech bastard that the term fan is distinct from the term team. My initial theory before starting my research was that this town was a product of incest or something like that on a massive scale. That would explain the homogeneity among its residents and the uniformity of its customs to an extent. They're all a product of some large town-wide sex cult. It's not that. Maybe it's weirder. As I mentioned before in 105's Blindsided and episode 103 Family Huddle, this season plays around with a lot of familiar tropes and switches out terminology for football things, like saying soccer is a gateway sport, etc., etc. But in doing so, it creates a lot of weird implications. First off, it seems to loosely affiliate the idea of race with the term team, and sexual orientation with sport affiliation, a la football, lacrosse. Like I said, it's a spectrum. Regardless, this town cultivates a particular type of fan, once born from many different families. But it's clear that the fans are expected to behave a certain way, and there are ways to prove that you're a quote-unquote true fan. Physical attributes and practices that show allegiance. And so what I can understand about Fansville is that it's not a town of incest, but instead, like, eugenics? Sure. Also, I have no idea who Bodysuit Fan is. He never shows up again, and he's too weird and too prominent, enough to be slapped onto 2 posters for it not to mean anything. It's not like you can't find another actor, right? I had this idea that he was secretly some closeted tech fan, but keeping with our loose allegories, that doesn't make sense. From what I can tell, there's no clear connection to make him the true father of Tech Child. I can't even speculate on his true identity because his voice, body shape, and mannerisms don't match up with even the most minor characters. Anyway, a large theme of this season explores the idea of what is the right way to be a fan. Not just in the sense of how much do you cheer or do you paint your face for the tailgate. No, I mean that in a town where everybody is a fan, there's a certain behavior you must abide by to fit in with how the rest of the fans celebrate. We see that explored through CJ's family, which is already hanging on by a thread, mostly due to his father's strict adherence to these fan customs. He seeks worth and value only from State University's standings and from his loyalty to Dr. Pepper. That is his main priority, and anything that motivates his family by passion to do something even remotely outside of those bounds is not okay with him. And we see in a sort of microcosm of the entire series the only outcomes of that lifestyle. One in CJ's mother, who longs for a lover, a life that prioritizes the love of the game, not out of an adherence to tradition, but still the comfort and familiarity of her life in Fansville keeps her subservient because just look at this town. It's all she's ever known. And she quite literally may not ever be able to find an alternative. That's seen in both episode 106 Heatwave and episode 103 Family Huddle, which is also where we see the other side of things in CJ himself. He wants to explore watching and later playing other sports, right now being soccer. However, he's discouraged heavily from ever doing this. He, however, continues to fight it, and proves that it's possible to carve out a piece of your individuality in this town. We also see this to a lesser extent this season with Logan and Lily. As a new father, Logan is a rabid State fan, while his illegitimate son is a fan for the rival team. Logan tries desperately to cling to this false reality, that he lives in a world where everyone is a State fan, and that he's the real father. And it's this sad peek into the reality of being a State fan unconditionally. how Fansville grooms its residents to be. We see that theme explored through Jay and Natalie, who I believe represent the model of what a true fan can be. They love and support each other in their fandom, and they take pride in their team through Jay's legendary tailgates. But their relationship is a bit strange. As seen like in Season 2, Episode 5's tailgate cheating, that love is conditional. Whether it's a sprained grilling hand or subsequently being outdone by a better grill master, Natalie loves Jay only for as long as his utility to Fansville remains. It speaks to the fact that on a grander scale, the residents of Fansville are more well-liked the more they play into the systems in place. But most importantly, that theme is explored through Sheriff Bosworth, the man who keeps the peace, upholds the rules, and ensures everyone is happy and healthy drinking Dr. Pepper. Or is that really who he is? There's eerie overtones in the show that the sheriff cares less about upholding the law and more about purifying the fan base of dissenters. I understand that's a pretty big claim to make, but just look at what is actually classified as a definable crime in Fansville. Pulling for multiple seasons, it's clear that all crimes shown to the audience are relative to anything that keeps fans from celebrating football and or drinking Dr. Pepper. This can correlate to real-life crimes like theft of property, as seen in Season 4, Episode 5's Missing Goalposts, and disturbing the peace like in Season 2, Episode 9's Big Fan Rising. Both times, however, they're approached with the same level of seriousness. And the thing is, we never see any real prosecution for actual crimes, unless immediate action is given to crimes that aren't as widely noticed in the moment, like in Missing Goalposts. Sheriff just sort of dawdles around for the rest of the season, and takes his time because it's not this big public display, like even in Season 3, Episode 4's Jinxer. But any public anti-Fansville behavior is snuffed out quickly, especially if it hinders other residents partaking in fan activities. It's a show of strength to, in a sense, snuff out the revolution and scare off other dissenters. And that same logic can be applied to punishments for said crimes. Criminals are punished in some unusual ways in the series. Those serving jail time are forced to sell tickets outside of the stadium in orange prison jumpsuits, like Ray in Episode 110's Unusual Suspects. But later we see in episodes like Season 3, Episode 5's Courtroom Hijinks, that punishments can include something as ridiculous as
10 Saturdays without Dr. Pepper.
The common chord between the two is that they prevent the person being punished from partaking in traditional fan activities, like actually watching football. The thing is, for all of the persecuted crimes we see throughout the show, most everyone convicted still gets to drink their corporate-friendly, logo-facing-out Dr. Pepper. Let's not even get started on the fact that Ray's prison jumpsuit has a State U patch on it, implying State U is part of some prison industrial complex. Anyway, all that discussion brings me to Coach Les Miles. His story brings up a lot of interesting questions, particularly, what is such a legendary coach like Les Miles
Legendary coach, Les Miles!
doing working at an old gas station? And what would motivate him to steal the national championship trophy? I initially assumed it could be some medical diagnosis, citing the doctor's throwaway line about playoff fever.
You got playoff fever.
Or maybe it was revenge for past wrongs? What wrongs could he possibly have? For starters, let's look at this easy-to-miss shot in Season 1's official trailer, of our legendary coach snacking on what appears to be an actual piece of grass. At first, this just seems to poke fun at the fact that Les Miles has been known to actually eat blades of grass during games, but take a closer look. The bag is an officially licensed Les's Grass Snacks, Kentucky Bluegrass flavor. This seems to imply that Les Miles, in the Fansville universe, had a successful business, an officially endorsed snack banking off of his popularity in town as a coach, likely for State U sometime in the past. My actual theory forces us to take one more look at the map of downtown Fansville. I'll admit building this map was a bit of an exercise in futility, as nothing I drew really ever helped me understand more of the lore. Except for this one place. By using the position of the water tower as a reference point, it's clear that the gas station exists outside of the bounds of the larger town, and it's separated by a large mountain range. Let's look at the store itself. An old, rundown shack that looks like it's been around a lot longer than the rest of Fansville. I know this because just look at the storefront. The old-fashioned, football-shaped sign reads Fansville Market, with a sleek, callous sticker slapped on the bottom labeled Dr. Pepper. Remember, State University College was established in 1885, as was the Dr. Pepper brand. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Fansville was started at the same time. In fact, in Season 2's official trailer, we see the town is celebrating their 150th anniversary.
Welcome to Fansville's 150th anniversary tailgate!
150 years from 1885 would set that season in the year 2035, which can't happen because in Season 3, the trailer Football's Back shows the town's statue by the church has been updated to include a face mask, implying COVID-19 is happening in real time and has impacted Fansville in some way, which proves Fansville existed before State U and before Dr. Pepper. Remember, Fansville is a town where everybody is a fan, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were always fans of Dr. Pepper. I believe that the soft drink invaded the town in 1885, establishing itself as an institution, coinciding with the foundation of State University to become an institution in itself, in what I'd call the Nick Saban effect. I'm not saying that Dr. Pepper has some sort of magical properties that explain State U's athletic ability as well as many other things, yet. But the point is that as Dr. Pepper became such a commodity, eventually there was little room for Les Miles and his product. Ever since, he's been forced to sink with his ship as the Fansville market loses more and more of its novelty each day, just becoming more obsolete. He didn't have the power or the reach to contest this, and now he's forced to peddle products to his customers made by the company that's put him out of business, without whom he'd have nothing left, all with a smile on his face as he cheers, "Go State." Les Miles first failed to prove his utility to Fansville's system, and so he was ousted. He then decided to steal the trophy in defiance, and was similarly punished for falling out of line, disrupting the status quo. Season 2 does what every great series does in its sophomore season, and just steps it up in every way possible. It adds new layers to existing characters and builds on the lore and history, while introducing several new plot developments that build the town of Fansville into a richer, more interesting story world. The official teaser seeks to catch viewers up on developments from the last season, mostly with unused takes from existing scenes. First, we get a repeat of CJ's family gathered around their kitchen table. His father breaks the news,
Our top recruit just decommitted.
adding fuel to the fire that he has an inability to connect with his family on anything aside from football. We see the doctor give an unseen patient a new diagnosis of fumble fingers.
You've got fumble fingers.
And Julia has another rendezvous with Ramon, where she apparently tries to end things based on their tone.
You can have any tech girl you want.
No. Because of their school's bitter rivalry. It's too dangerous, and they could get caught. He says he doesn't want a tech girl, and so Julia is faced with an ultimatum. She can't stay in Fansville and continue to be with the one she loves. There's a couple of shots from episode 109's Encroachment, where we get to see the referee family's dog, and, based on cross-referencing photos and geographic mapping, a dog that is likely Sheriff Bosworth's. They growl at each other, and they're real cute, and they're all dressed up, and look at that one, he has a cute little hat on. Jay appears to be back at full health, keeping continuity by grilling again with his left hand, Dr. Pepper in his right. But Natalie is nowhere in sight, suggesting she's preoccupied somewhere else. And lastly, Sheriff Bosworth is seen drinking Dr. Pepper at the Fansville diner and in the rain by his cruiser. It seems kind of weird that logistically, Sheriff drinking Dr. Pepper with the police lights behind him should take place immediately after Les Miles got electrocuted off the roof. It feels a bit callous for him to be so nonchalant. Next up is the official trailer, which sets the stage for the main conflicts this season, and includes some exclusive and pivotal deleted scenes from later episodes, which I'll be sure to connect the dots to when we reach them. This season takes place during the city of Fansville's 150th anniversary. The mayor of Fansville is set to host a massive 150th anniversary tailgate downtown. Fan expectations are high, and tensions are higher. As individual conflicts keep ratcheting up in intensity, it's like a powder keg, ready to explode at any moment. With our backdrop set, we see the goings-on of our main characters as they prepare for the celebration. Much of the trailer uses footage from later episodes this season, so I'll save those recaps for later. But there are also several scenes that didn't make the cut. First, we see CJ's parents enter their son's room holding a 150th anniversary cake. However, CJ has other things on his mind.
Go State!
Mom, Dad.
His parents walk in on him and catch him watching a lacrosse game on his laptop.
Dad.
Lacrosse?
It's the fastest growing sport in America.
Just like his dad predicted, CJ is spiraling deeper down the soccer to lacrosse to anti-establishment pipeline.
First you're watching soccer, next thing you know you're gonna watch lacrosse.
The mayor outlines to Sheriff Bosworth that the tailgate will draw a gigantic crowd, as fans of State U are piling in from other cities.
We got fans coming in from Fan Arbor, East Fansing, Kansas City, Kansas.
We get a strange tease of some nefarious force in Fansville. CJ's parents claim that
All of our Dr. Pepper's gone.
as police lights and sirens were in the background. That's immediately followed by CJ being put in the sheriff's squad car, as he exclaims,
Hey, you got the wrong fan!
This implies that CJ is being implicated in the presumed theft. And Sheriff Bosworth's making an example out of the rebel kid once again, someone who's a perceived threat to Fansville, just like he did with Ramon in episode 110's Unusual Suspects. Next, Logan exclaims at a tailgate that
These turnovers are killing us!
with some of his face paint streaking. It looks like he's been crying, and is now hysterical. After we watch his episode, we'll likely find out why. And lastly, we have probably the most important 2 seconds of the season. Something that never gets addressed again. Not even in the episode it's likely ripped from. Julia reveals to her unnamed friend that she's transferred to Tech University.
Transferring to Tech.
This is the answer to Ramon's question from the teaser. Will Julia continue to let their opposing teams divide them and keep their love apart? No, not anymore. She sees how toxic Fansville's culture has been, preventing her from being with her true love. Julia officially becomes the first person to leave Fansville behind. Episode 203, An Excessive Celebration, is an episode you've probably already seen. It's one of the more popular ones, and has often had reruns during later seasons. It features CJ being dropped off back at his house after a State U game. His parents stand out on their front porch in their robes and scold him for getting back so early?
It is 7 p.m.
We crushed Tech by 40. You should be out there celebrating.
Not a trace of Dr. Pepper.
Now, CJ is really coming into his own. And his parents know that he's not picking up on any game day traditions his father has tried to instill in him. His parents have bigger priorities, though. They're taking a victory lap with the Streakers, their neighbors across the street.
Hi, CJ! Great game, huh?
They put a pin in that. Episode 204, First Words, is the first of a couple of episodes taking place at Fansville Stadium, as various residents are enjoying their tailgates. This one focuses on Logan and Lily, who are watching the bastard son run around his playpen. He's more grown up since last season, is walking on his own, and is starting to, obviously, say his first words. He first says,
Snake, his first words.
and Logan lights up, exclaiming,
You are my son.
That's all ruined like 2 seconds later when the kid keeps talking, saying stuff like,
State stinks.
Lily predictably sips her Dr. Pepper and looks away suspiciously, while Logan gets into an argument about football with a literal toddler.
At least we play a real schedule. Tech just feeds on cupcakes.
While this is only reaffirming what we assumed in Season 1, the big takeaway here is that Logan is more concerned with defending State U than accepting his son as is. Like there's genuinely no room for individuality in Fansville. That seems to be a big motif throughout this season specifically, and I'll comment on it as we get there. Episode 205, Tailgate Cheating, switches perspectives over to Jay and Natalie. As previously mentioned, Jay is back to full health, and is grilling like a true grill master again. Keeping with what we saw in the official teaser, Natalie rushes in, and he says she's late. They kiss, indicating they're further along in their relationship. It's notable because they're literally the only couple to kiss in the entire series. However, he quickly accuses her of seeing another grill master.
Is that Dijon mustard? Are you seeing another grill?
We cut to a nearby chef, credited as Hibachi Grill Master in IMDb, and Natalie confesses she's attracted to her because of the onion ring volcano. To rub salt in the wound, Natalie even says that she can't tell the difference between Hibachi Grill Master's propane grilling and Jay's all-natural grilling.
This is natural, girl.
Tastes the same to me.
What?
Looking past the obvious jokey nature, this is just reiterating what I said back in the Season 1 analysis on a fan's utility being valued more than the fan itself. Episode 206, Fannesia, is set in the aftermath of some accident. Logan is rushed to the hospital for an injury where he, quote,
took a goalpost to the head while celebrating.
What a great comeback by State.
It's unclear how exactly he got injured at this point, but we'll circle back around when it becomes relevant. Logan has something called fannesia, which is distinct from amnesia, as it seems to specifically make someone forget being a fan of State U.
Who's State?
He's got fannesia. Forgot he's a fan.
Weird. Anyway, the doctor prescribes the cure. He needs Dr. Pepper administered ASAP. When Logan forgets what Dr. Pepper is, the doctor is ready to call it.
Your husband's gone.
And Lily just resigns her head. However, Logan takes one sip and he seems to spring back to full health.
Whoa, that's good. Have you tried it? What's it called? Dr. Pepper?
There's a lot weird going on here. But what's most apparent is how urgently the doctor treats the situation when a patient starts to forget he's a fan. Why is that the most severe situation? What's so bad about forgetting what State U, Dr. Pepper, or even Fansville is? And why does fannesia only affect those specific memories? You know, it kind of reminds me of those parts in the movies when a character under mind control gets hit so hard that they snap out of it. But that's too ridiculous. Episode 207, Ghost State, introduces ghosts. Like, literal ghosts. But based on what we've seen so far, it's not that much of a stretch. It sees Julia and her unnamed friend walking through what's presumably Julia's house, as they encounter paranormal sights like a football rolling on its own, creaky doors, etc. This all culminates in them walking in a room with a ghost as it moves a Dr. Pepper can like a planchette on a Ouija board, and it fogs up the mirror in the corner, spelling out,
State. Oh, it's a State fan.
The girls immediately warm up to the ghost and put on the TV for it. The tag shows them sitting on the couch together, the ghost munching on some popcorn. My question after this episode is this. Is it technically racist if she was only cool with the ghost being there once it was a State fan? What's with the whole narrative that continues to be pushed of the State fan master race? Anyway, this should logistically be the episode where Julia reveals she's transferring to tech, which is weird considering how chill she is and how she's treating State fans. But I get it, she's conflicted. Episode 208, Big Fan begins, sets up this season's big bad, and we finally start to connect the dots between some of the vague scenes from the official trailer. Meet Big Fan, an apparent urban legend inside Fansville that's an obvious play off of Bigfoot, except this guy is apparently just a normal Fansville resident. But he leaves a huge line of devastation in his wake, as seen by the burnt couch and crushed Dr. Pepper cans. We learn just how ever-present Big Fan was throughout the season, just out of frame. We get a little bit more context on Logan's accident from episode 206's Fannesia, as he gives a statement to Sheriff Bosworth that Big Fan
threw that goalpost like a toothpick.
Seems like that Dr. Pepper cured his fannesia real quick. We jump back to that scene of CJ's parents giving a statement that
It punched a hole in the Jumbotron.
This is likely the incident that sees CJ put in custody briefly. He's presumably released after he's proven innocent, thanks to Logan's statement in the hospital. Back in the hospital, the doctor shows Sheriff Bosworth his best clue yet. A blurry photo actually depicting Big Fan, which links back to all the evidence in his office he's collected so far. Whatever this thing is, it's a massive threat to everyone in Fansville. Luckily, he gets some help from Ray Wise! The Ticket Man himself is out of his orange jumpsuit and back in a, green poncho? What, is he an Unbreakable? I don't know what that means. He, for some reason, knows a lot about Big Fan, and he gives us some new details.
He wears shoulder pads with spikes in them. He doesn't just drink Dr. Pepper. He eats it.
He'll be at the biggest tailgate of the year.
Based off of all this evidence, it's suggested that Big Fan is drawn to large celebrations with high levels of enthusiasm, and lots of Dr. Pepper. It's like a leviathan, and it must continue to feed. This episode concludes with Sheriff Bosworth confronting the mayor at the tailgate, asking him to shut it down. Stitching scenes with the official trailer, the mayor denies Big Fan's existence and says he refuses to cancel the tailgate because it brings in too much money, like any good, nefarious movie politician would say. Episode 209, Big Fan Rising, is the second part of the Big Fan mystery and is the official season finale for Season 2. After a brief recap of events, we cut right to the big event. The mayor commences the tailgate festivities just as Big Fan storms on stage and throws him into the crowd. And he's played by Brian Bosworth. They're not the same person though, I don't think. A terrified audience scrambles for safety. In the crowd, we see Julia, Natalie, and Logan all cowering in fear. What's notable is that each of them has attended this tailgate alone. With each of the three going through a rough patch in their respective relationships, this lines up. But anyway, back to Big Fan, he doesn't retaliate further. Sure, he throws a podium, but it's just to clear the space on stage so he can dance. He's not malicious, he's just a fan who celebrates excessively. But that doesn't fit within the lines of what Fansville's deemed acceptable fan behavior. And so, Sheriff approaches him to take him down. The Doctor is part of the ambush, taking the shot and chest passing a football directly at Big Fan. Defeated, he collapses onto the stage, and is presumably taken away, and we never see him again. But hey, that's just another year in Fansville. Again, let's start with the smaller revelations before we get to the big new information we can confirm after this season. Filling in some more geographic information, the mayor mentions several neighboring cities, all based on real places with the word fan inserted in. Examples include Fan Arbor, Kansas City Fanses, Los Angeles, and Birmingham, Alabama. All likely nothing more than a stupid joke. If you don't take it too literally, you can see this as towns with similar social structures to Fansville popping up all around, possibly within the larger Fansville County. It seems to imply that the hold Dr. Pepper has had on this town is starting to expand, but nothing really comes of that we can see, so let's move on. We also see several episodes reiterate two key points relating to the idea of Fansville as this authoritarian dystopia that prioritizes fan utility and devalues individuality in fandom. We see most prominently through Big Fan that any sort of deviation from a perceived quote-unquote correct form of celebration is prohibited. And the Sheriff intends to maintain that presentational, vapid type of fandom, with the Dr. Pepper always in hand. It's what we see best with CJ's father's and Logan's arcs this season, as they vehemently deny that their families are falling apart around them. First, CJ's family is hurtling further along towards the total destruction of the nuclear family dynamic. Now that he's out and proud as a non-football fan, CJ openly picks fights with his parents, like in episode 203's In Excessive Celebration.
Look what you're doing to her.
Why aren't you celebrating?
And still, CJ's mother walks the line between supporting her son and staying a loyal fan. In both their story and Logan's, we see the price of unbudging, blind fandom. It's isolating. In episode 204, First Words, Logan becomes so preoccupied with making sure his son is a State fan that he implicitly proves he wouldn't love him as much if he was well and truly a Tech fan.
He's a State fan deep down.
It barely has anything to do with the possible adultery at this point. We also see what happens in real time when a fan's utility becomes obsolete, albeit on a very small personal scale. In episode 205's Tailgate Cheating, we see through Jay and Natalie that her interest starts to wane in him after our bi-queen falls for another grill master's cooking.
What does she have that I don't?
She has an onion volcano. Look.
This exemplifies that in Natalie's eyes, Jay's worth is entirely contingent on his contribution to Fansville customs, in this case being able to grill well. He struggled with that since season 1's episode X-Ray, and through no fault of his own, Natalie wants to move on. In Big Fan Rising, we see her attend the 150th anniversary tailgate all by herself, suggesting that she, as a microcosm of the town of Fansville, only saw value in Jay when he was able to prove his worth as a real fan. As he said himself,
"But I'm a grill master, Doc. This is what I do."
This is all met with a decent amount of pushback from several residents in town. Season 2 continues the series arc of disillusionment, and we see several individual arcs conclude. First and most obvious is probably Julia. Her arc is only seen in snippets, as a lot of the development happens off-screen. What's most notable here is the lack of any new scenes she has with Ramon, and that's no accident. After the events of episode 110's Unusual Suspects, it's clear that Julia and Ramon's relationship has been compromised, made public thanks to the sheriff's intervention. Not only that, but the first thing he did was use Ramon to spy on Julia. She knows that if this relationship is to work, they can't fight for rival teams. More specifically, she can't stay in Fansville anymore. That's why in the official trailer, she announces her intention to transfer to Tech. And it's why you don't see the couple together in any other episodes she's in. Similarly, Logan and Lily go through tumultuous times, but come out very differently. In episode 204's First Words, we focus on Logan's babbling as he desperately tries to validate his son. Meanwhile, Lily just watches. This season, she doubles down on this sort of passive disinterest in her relationship, exemplified by the different takes used for her reaction in episode 206, Fannesia. In the official trailer, she reacts passionately, painfully to the idea that
your husband's gone.
For the season?
But in the official episode, she just resigns and sulks, only half disappointed. But all should be fine because Logan is spurred back to full health with just one sip of Dr. Pepper. But it's that pivotal moment. Once Lily realizes that Dr. Pepper is keeping her husband as the avid fan he is, that she realizes she can't do the same. We see this confirmed in episode 209, Big Fan Rising, when, like Natalie, Logan attends the 150th anniversary tailgate alone. That sad, resigned nod is the last time we see Lily in this series, and contrary to how it looks, this is a moment of rejuvenation for her. Now's the time for her to find her tech fan lover and take her tech fan child away from the clutches of the rabid fans of Fansville. And this season's most mysterious inconsequential character award goes to Ray, who's upgraded his role from Ticket Man to what I'm now calling Poncho Man. Obviously, he has a history in series with Sheriff Bosworth, and whether that's that they were old allies, adversaries, or even just former classmates is up in the air. That camaraderie, though, has been present ever since episode 110's Unusual Suspects. I don't understand how he's so knowledgeable about Big Fan, or what's at stake for him to take him down. I don't understand what his job is now that he's off the ball and chain. I don't understand what role he could possibly serve in Fansville. As the series goes on, you'll start to notice very few characters outside of our already established main cast get names or let alone any major character traits, which is done in an effort to keep things simplified for audiences catching the odd commercial out of context. I can't blame them there, but boy is it frustrating. But despite all of that, there's this weird undercurrent to a lot of Fansville episodes, where there isn't just a need to display Dr. Pepper, but in fact there's a total reliance on Dr. Pepper to sustain life. Yep, here comes my big claim for the season. I don't think Fansville just so happened to adopt Dr. Pepper as its drink of choice. I think it was a deliberate implementation by State University College as a means of mind control. My first inkling of this being some bigger conspiracy was this moment in episode 208, Big Fan Begins, as Sheriff Bosworth is taking Logan's witness statement following his injury. Take a look at that plaque on the desk nearby. Although it's blurry, I can make out the words, State University College. This is a campus-funded hospital. That means State U athletics, State U research, and State U influence over the medical practices within Fansville. Taking what we already established about the town's founding and State University's establishment in 1885 alongside Dr. Pepper, it's becoming increasingly clear that Dr. Pepper is much more ingrained with the goings-on in Fansville than anybody realizes. Just look how front and center it is. A State U player stands mightily above an open cooler full of Dr. Pepper cans in the town statue, right at the heart of downtown. And look at what's right next door. Talk about a lack of separation of church and state. Even more, look at how the team's colors match the Dr. Pepper cans. The two institutions have been intertwined since the start. Now we know this also extends to not just the hospital, but also commercial areas like the Fansville Market and likely several other businesses in downtown Fansville. State University controls the market on where, how, and when Dr. Pepper is dispersed throughout Fansville. As for its purpose, every instance of a character in a non-recreational setting like the hospital that takes Dr. Pepper does so for medical reasons. But does that necessarily mean Dr. Pepper has healing properties? I don't think so. We're playing with a soft magic system here. But when you look at all the fictional diseases that exist within Fansville, they all center around football or fandom-related injuries.
You've got fumble fingers, playoff fever.
You have restless wave syndrome.
He's got fan knees.
Dr. Pepper is then used as a regulator, or a sort of steroid to help people get back to enjoying their fandom much quicker. Take that technology and put it in the hands of everyday people to consume regularly, it becomes a means of mind control practically. Going hand in hand with this, the Doctor is quickly blurring the line between serving as a healer and another equalizer. His job description is quickly growing from just helping rehabilitate patients to violating the Hippocratic Oath on all fronts and becoming another doctor who just signs that one prescription for everybody. Not to mention his violent tendencies, as seen in episode 209 Big Fan Rising, and blatant bias as to what fans get what treatment, as seen in both episode 108's X-Ray and episode 206's Fannesia. When he's working directly with other State U fans, he dedicates his personal time to healing Jay and Logan. Meanwhile, in episodes like Season 1 and 2's official trailers, we get snippets of the Doctor just callously reading off diagnoses, and we see explicitly in Season 3's official trailer his total nonchalance helping a body-painted tech fan suffering from what he calls restless wave syndrome. It's almost as if Fansville residents get priority access to Dr. Pepper because they need it more. Not only that, but this theory also explains the weird things we brushed over last season, including Jay needing the Dr. Pepper hat in physical therapy in episode 108's X-Ray, or Ray the Ticket Man still being allowed Dr. Pepper in his cell in episode 110's Unusual Suspects. It's compulsive. It makes you wonder, what would happen if someone were deprived of Dr. Pepper? Would they just cease to function? Or they finally become enlightened, like gaining the ability to see color like in The Giver? It's something we've already seen in several key characters, and it's clear this trend shows no sign of stopping. This season concludes on a solemn note, as Big Fan is aggressively taken down in a public manner by citizens taking the law into their own hands. As he falls, so does the shroud of idealism that painted this glossy, bubblegum image of the town with pep. Fansville was never a place where fans could be uninhibited. Fansville was always designed as a tool for control. There's no going back from here. Also, is Big Fan actually supposed to be Sheriff's twin? Because that leads down some weird rabbit holes. Also, does that mean that Logan's sentence of 10 Saturdays without Dr. Pepper is this universe's version of a death sentence? Season 3 is complicated. Not just in its production, although that's certainly true, but also in its release structure. With that big global situation popping up, the question was raised if college football, and by extension Fansville, would even return for a third season. But rest assured, the rest of the world budged when football wouldn't. And soon enough, we started seeing new episodes slowly come out. Dr. Pepper took a different approach to shooting the Season 3's campaign. If the trailer looks familiar, that's because it was created from archive footage from the past 2 seasons. It was made very clear from the outset that this season was going to be a little bit different. Not only does the season suffer from a shorter episode count, but 2 of the 5 recorded episodes feature largely reused footage or alternate takes from seasons 1 and 2. That in turn allowed the company to monitor the rising cases and adapt to the situation to keep its cast and crew safe during the production. To quote a press release from Andrew Springate, CMO for Cure Dr. Pepper. The 3 new broadcast spots were shot just 2 weeks ago through a completely virtual production. Our advertising team was able to direct the campaign from home through software that offered a split screen of the shoot. One side was a live shot of the director's camera, and the other side was a virtual video conference call with the entire team. We were able to provide feedback and direction in real time, all from our home offices. The entire production was shot following all safety guidance and protocols provided by health authorities and government agencies. And back to when I said the word recorded, I should have clarified I mean all available episodes according to shoddy internet archives. Surprisingly, there aren't a lot of Dr. Pepper superfans that are dedicated to archiving every aspect of this company's stupid marketing campaigns. Even Dr. Pepper themselves. Yes, Dr. Pepper's official YouTube channel has unlisted seasons 1 and 2 of Fansville, but thankfully they're still accessible through a couple of public playlists containing all the episodes of the series in order. However, season 3, in its official high-definition format, has either been made private or is removed entirely from the Dr. Pepper channel. At the time of writing this, no public re-upload is available in its original quality, and so I had to resort to building my own library by torrenting from this shady third-party website that likely gave me 14 viruses the moment I clicked on it. Good thing I use NordVPN. No. Just no. Now, like a few days before I was recording this, I saw that the guy who edited all the commercials uploaded high-quality versions of most of this to his Vimeo, so I just used one of those. Shout out to Grant Sermi, a true internet historian. Seriously, watching all of these in HD for the first time was like finally seeing in color. I scanned his entire catalog of Fansville episodes, and I assume there really are just 5 episodes in season 3. 2 old footage trailers and 3 newly filmed spots. That lines up with a number of private videos in the Dr. Pepper YouTube playlists, as well as the public statements made in press releases. And so, to the best of my knowledge, here's a breakdown of the contentious Season 3 of Fansville. Episode 301, Football is Back, breaks the format of previous season's trailers, in that it doesn't tease any upcoming plot points, and rather focuses on blatantly addressing how the season will be different.
But now, football is back. Kind of, for some teams.
Using old footage and alternate takes to make up for the fact that the production of Season 3 had to get around a lot of new restrictions due to something bad that happened in the spring of 2020. I don't know, I don't watch the news. But seriously, again, the football player statue in the center of town has noticeably been modified to be wearing a face mask, implying that COVID-19 has affected Fansville too? Don't think about it too hard, you're gonna drive yourself crazy, Noah. Anyway, the weird thing here is that the narrator, for the first time, seems to be directly addressing the audience, using the term you.
Football is back and Fansville is ready. Are you?
That's notable because as time goes on and we see more of this, there's this tone where the narration is trying to ease the audience into the changing status quo and guide the direction of what plot points actually get explored. Like we're only allowed to see what the narrator shows us. And the reason the stories of some of Fansville's dissenters stopped getting explored was because we weren't allowed to see them. That's crazy, though. It's not like the show is explicitly breaking the fourth wall, and the reality of this idyllic small town is starting to crumble. That's safe for next season. Episode 302 is the official trailer. This features more reused footage from Season 2, but this time we get more substantial scenes that include a few new shots and lines of dialogue. From episode 203's In Excessive Celebration, CJ's parents ask where they went wrong raising their son.
Did we not high-five you enough as a child?
CJ responds in a snarky tone,
Dad, you high-five me plenty.
The insight here is that in Fansville, even physical affection in this household is akin to player encouragement in sports, not genuine affection. CJ's tone implies that his parents' lack of genuine affection itself has made him become adverse to Fansville's customs, which falls in line with what we've said thus far. From episode 205, Tailgate Cheating, we see more of the fallout of Jay and Natalie's first real fight, as Natalie confesses that Hibachi Grillmaster...
Did she toss a shrimp in your mouth?
It was bacon wrap.
From episode 204, First Words, we see a new shot of Tech Child screaming at his fake father. And lastly, there's a new scene I mentioned briefly in the Season 2 analysis. It shows the doctor standing in a patient's room. The tech fan is painted head to toe in bright blue, and can't stop flailing his arms. The doctor diagnoses the fan with
restless wave syndrome.
This is the last we ever see of the doctor character. Episode 303, Lucky Pants, is the first of the actual new episodes this season. It starts off with CJ's dad, ever superstitious, tearing through his drawers trying to find his lucky pair of pants before a state game. CJ's mom comes in to break the news.
There was a problem at the cleaners. They shrunk your lucky pants.
My pants?
As CJ and his mom are headed out the front door, Dad makes a grand entrance wearing the now uncomfortably tight shorts.
Oh,
Dad. Look, fit like a glove.
CJ is understandably embarrassed, as is his mother. For the first time shown publicly, CJ's father's adherence to tradition, even in situations where he shouldn't, is actively embarrassing his family. Episode 304, Jinxer, takes place during a backyard cookout during a state U game. Jay and Natalie are grilling and are inexplicably happy together like the events of Season 2 didn't even happen. And Logan is watching the game on a couch nearby, with no wife and no child in sight. He calls out ahead of a field goal.
This guy's automatic, no way he misses.
The kicker inevitably misses, and someone I'm calling offended state fan yells that Logan jinxed it. To everyone else, Logan becomes public enemy number 1, as if that's the worst thing he could possibly have done.
You jinxed it.
Jinxing who, me? No.
For the first time in the show, Logan says that's ridiculous. Even his fandom has a cap. However, everyone else doesn't see it that way. We cut to Sheriff Bosworth putting him in the back of his cruiser. He continues to plead that
there's no such thing as a jinx.
Logan, reeling from a likely split-up, is wising up to the fact that his excessive fandom is maybe what drove Lily away. He's getting a big mouth about Fansville and how ridiculous he thinks its strictness can be. Just like that, Logan makes himself the next in line for disillusionment. Episode 305, Courtroom Hijinks, is a direct follow-up to the previous episode, which, excluding the two-part finales in previous seasons, is the first time we've seen that tight of a continuity within the same season. And it's important. Logan actually stands trial for allegedly jinxing the State U kicker. He's being questioned by someone literally credited as blonde lawyer, and it quickly devolves into kangaroo court.
It was automatic!
Never say that! Jinxer!
A judge and Sheriff Bosworth are clearly biased against Logan and for Dr. Pepper.
Objection. Irrelevant.
Overruled. Dr. Pepper's always relevant.
Without any clear legal defense, Logan is left out to dry, and the judge throws down a quick judgment.
This court finds you guilty of jinxing and sentences you to 10 Saturdays without Dr. Pepper.
Can't I just go to prison?
To reiterate, this falls in line with the fact that any punishment in Fansville is relative to anything that keeps fans from celebrating football and or Dr. Pepper. Logan's being sentenced for a crime that also falls within those lines of definable crimes, as fans believe his jinx was directly interfering with the outcome of a state U game. That's where this section of the video would typically end, except there's a little clip I feel is important. This 15-second video was found on Nick Ballard's Instagram feed. It's framed like a PSA of some sort, and it sees Logan in character sit down with some dramatic music behind him, some time after his sentencing. He speaks to the dangers of jinxing, and begs others not to do it.
I jinxed my own team. So this national championship game, when you want to make a prediction, don't.
This is canon to the events of Fansville. Who made this? Is this some sort of propaganda? Was Logan made to be the poster child for someone who didn't fall in line? We'll never know for sure, but you can tell he's not doing this completely willingly. Just look at the change in his demeanor from just after getting arrested to now.
There's no such thing as a jinx!
I jinxed my own team.
The city of Fansville is not only making an example out of Logan, but they're actively reprogramming him to be a good little fan. One thing you'll notice about this season is a dramatic dip in storylines that we're following at one time. In previous seasons, every grouping of characters got their own self-contained arc, the outcomes of which were carried over between seasons. But because of those developments, there's less room to grow. CJ is becoming more outspoken and independent, Ramon and Julia overcame their opposing teams to find love, and Lily similarly found happiness likely with someone else, which explains her sudden absence, leaving Logan and his obsession with State U to fester. And as for characters still actively developing their arcs, many major players get, pardon the pun, sidelined this season due to time constraints. The Doctor is only seen once this season, in that short scene where he nonchalantly diagnoses a tech fan with restless waist syndrome. And that was filmed prior to this season. And despite having comparatively similar amounts of screen time to previous seasons, Sheriff Bosworth, Jay, and Natalie all seem to be stuck in place, now caricatures of the stern cop or the grill master. What this season does well is tracking the two arguably most important and fleshed out storylines in the whole series, and that's CJ's family and Logan. Let's start with CJ's family. Their bond is in a precarious position at this point. CJ implies through that cutscene through episode 203's In Excess of Celebration very directly that it's his father's quote-unquote plentiful and almost obsessive fixations on State U that has made him so distant. Dad's adherence to tradition now actively puts him in embarrassing scenarios and shows that it can be detrimental to stay so traditionally minded, let alone alienating. CJ's obviously more nurturing, more understanding mother is still forcibly torn in two directions. Even as recent as this last season, in episode 303's Lucky Pants, she's shown shame for her husband's excessive celebration, becoming another one of the disillusioned residents to some extent. But now that her son has othered himself as a dissenter, she has no choice but to stick with his father to not stray from her family's traditions. Look at the other example in episode 106's Heatwave, where she clearly has wandering eyes. She's not happy, but she's comfortable to just live vicariously through those around her. And then there's Logan. Poor, sweet, cuckold Logan. He's off the deep end. He's isolated, forced to move houses since last season, as made clear matching up the tree in his front yard and the color of the walls in Jinxer to matching up these exterior shots in season 4 episode 5's Missing Goalposts. Compared to episode 110's Unusual Suspects, this house is smaller, older, and screams newly divorced dad. This is all with a big asterisk because I swear to God, who was in charge of maintaining continuity when it came to the Fansville suburbs? And does that mean he was really arrested at his own house? Can you imagine all of his guests wondering what to do after that? Where do they go? Clearly not back to their own houses, since the geography of this place exists in some nebulous in-between space where nobody cares about attention to detail. We don't have time for this right now. Logan has had a lot of time to think this season in Lily's absence. He's likely thinking about what could have driven her away. It was definitely her affair, right? He knows for sure now that his child is illegitimate. But what could have driven her to run back to the true father? What made her fall out of love with him in the first place? Or, in reality, it gives him more time to focus on State U and Dr. Pepper, doubling down and going to games and surrounding himself with fans as big as himself to justify he's not wrong for being a dedicated fan. Episodes 304 and 305, Jinxer and Courtroom Hijinks, show what happens when Logan isn't the biggest fan in the room, and we see the direct impact his fandom has had on others. We see him ostracized, ousted, completely and totally persecuted for the slightest hypothetical infraction against State U. Lines can be drawn to him literally yelling at his own child to prove a point about his favorite football team. Sounds familiar.
Should be out there celebrating. Look what you're doing to her.
Why aren't you celebrating?
And it's at that point, when he finally gets a taste of his own medicine, that he realizes Fansville's customs are oppressive and focus more on alienating people rather than seeing them come together. There's a few little loose ends to tie up this season, mainly just new branches to tangents I've been going on in the past. The first is this weird wording choice in Jinxer, when Sheriff puts Logan into his cruiser.
This is ridiculous.
Tell it to the refs.
A clear callback to Season 1's simple replacing verbiage and common phrases and scenarios to match football lingo.
It's a fan. It's a gateway sport, you know?
I even drank other sodas.
Only Tuscaloosa.
This instance being tell it to the judge, and we see that in the very next episode. But this simple nomenclature ties back to episode 109's Encroachment, where we see a family of referees in action, doing what appears to be their job and regulating any rule violations like Sheriff going offsides.
Offsides!
That wasn't very neighborly.
If we don't take this literally and start to blow this up on a town-wide scale, then what is the purpose of the sheriff? If referees exist as the stand-in for the judicial system, what utility does a literal law enforcement officer serve? Keeping in line with what we already understand about Sheriff Bosworth, I see these two entities as two sides of the same coin. One is focused on maintaining order within Fansville and doing standard upkeep, while the other is the muscle, an enforcer. The secret police actively looking to weed out dissenters, brush them off the streets like they never existed. Remember what we said about what is definable as crime and punishment within Fansville. It's anything that keeps fans from celebrating football and or Dr. Pepper. Things that we've established as essential to function within Fansville. Without either, the system in place would collapse under itself, and the illusion of idealism would be shattered. And so I guess the referees could be perceived as the more outwardly antagonistic force that really just aims to keep the peace in everyday scenarios and enforces rules and regulations. Meanwhile, the sheriff is a much more public figure, is well liked, but more directly seeks out dissenters and takes them into custody. They are diametrically opposed in terms of their purpose, but both uphold a strict standard for what Fansville is supposed to be. Also, in Logan's sentencing, he asks if he can get sent to prison.
10 Saturdays without Dr. Pepper.
Can't I just go to prison?
Prison exists as an alternative? Who is getting sent to prison? And for what? Now this is what I'm talking about. More episodes, more locations, and more exciting character developments, and conclusions to storylines years in the making. If Fansville were to be canceled today, I'd say it concluded somewhat naturally, when looking back on what it was setting up 4 years ago. This is the first season to not have a single episode feature the iconic Fansville Stadium. Instead, much of the action takes place in the smaller parts around town, at the bus stop downtown, in the rural older areas on the outskirts, in the disquieting comfort of the suburbs. Pulled away from the unifying action of game day and forced to ruminate in the quiet, eerie bliss of everyday Fansville, we start to see that glossy sheen that helped keep everyone's fandom level high start to fade over time. Episode 401, Return to Glory, is jam-packed full of exciting developments and even more intriguing, world-changing implications. This trailer is a massive return to form, and opens with College Football Hall of Famer Joe Theismann as himself, the first instance of this in the series.
Howdy folks, Joe Theismann here.
He addresses the audience and says they're in unprecedented times before he's quickly tackled by a State U fan, who also addresses the camera, cheering,
"College football is back! Woo!"
This is when Fansville falls face first into becoming self-aware. And as this season progresses, it becomes less tongue-in-cheek and more eerie, as if this fourth wall breaking is more about keeping things in line rather than keeping it light. Sheriff Bosworth is watching a Dr. Pepper advertisement with Clemson quarterback DJ Uiglagagale endorsing the drink. He coyly says,
I want to be in a commercial.
Haha, but that skips over the crucial detail here. Tying in with Logan's jinxing PSA at the tail end of season 3, I realized that we've only seen 2 in-universe commercials. And what have they been about? How to be a good fan and endorsing drinking Dr. Pepper. Television in Fansville is promoting propaganda. It's clear this season more than ever that the powers that be in Fansville are overstepping their bounds and are starting to make themselves very present. We see CJ's mother and father in different areas of the house ironing team flags and dusting off foam fingers respectively. No CJ though. Cut to Jay down on his knee, proposing to Natalie with a ring on a plate with a hot dog that reads, "Marry me."
Will you make me the happiest fan alive?
While this indicates that their relationship has inexplicably overcome its hurdles, it also implies that their love is still contingent on Jay's ability to win her over with his grillmaster skills. And now back to CJ's family, we see why he's been absent from State U festivities. He's breaking the news to his parents that he plans to attend college at Coastal University.
Coastal University?
I thought we decided on state.
No, that's what you decide.
He's leaving Fansville. His parents are both upset, as Mom is now staunchly on Dad's side, as CJ others himself, and Mom is left stranded in a way. Her dependency on others to fulfill her identity is showing full force. Coastal U, according to Mom,
They don't even have football.
What?
CJ's likely deciding factor to apply to Coastal U was the chance to distance himself as far as possible from Fansville and his parents' traditions they've tried to instill in him for so long. Next up is a prelude to episode 405's Missing Goalposts. It shows the sheriff cruising around the suburbs at night, investigating some, well, missing goalposts. We then see 2 familiar faces hiding behind the back of a house, hoisting one of the aforementioned goalposts. Yep, that's CJ's dad and Logan. This seems pretty out of character for both of them. But let's just take a look at what can motivate them. For CJ's dad, this could be him doubling down deeper into superfan status after his son's decision. After all, it is mentioned that the goalposts were stolen following a big win by State. Consider it peer pressure? As for Logan, that's best to hold off until the actual Missing Goalposts episode. Next is a tease for episode 402, Bouquet Toss, as Natalie once again appears to be late, this time to her own wedding. Joe Theismann makes a reappearance with someone officially credited as play-by-play announcer to address the audience directly and pose the question,
Question is, will Jay and Natalie cross the goal line as one?
Aside from just reinforcing the self-awareness of the show at this point, it suggests that these sort of overseers are guiding the direction of the plot of Fansville. And finally, we see Jay and Logan uncovering the entrance to this mysterious structure.
The transfer portal.
The legends are true.
Whatever this is, it appears to be on the outskirts of town and has some sort of legend status within Fansville. This brings up a lot of interesting implications for the series. Primarily, are the residents being kept in Fansville by some sort of force field? When was the structure created? And by whom? How does this explain outside fans coming in from other areas, like tech? Does this portal have any sort of mental effect on those who enter it? Is that the way to wipe away someone's fandom? Like some sort of anti-brainwashing? I mean, that would explain why outside fans don't fall victim to Fansville's sphere of influence. Episode 402, CJ Leaves for College, is CJ's send-off episode. The time has finally come, and CJ has meaningfully completed his arc, leaving the influence of Fansville and living his dreams at Coastal U. We can see that with the lacrosse racket that he's holding, hinting that he's going to play at Coastal. CJ's parents are there to see him off, and Mom first gifts him a case of Dr. Pepper. You know,
In case they don't have it at Coastal U.
this can be interpreted in 2 ways. One, even now, Fansville's residents are trying to encroach on surrounding communities to increase their sphere of influence. Or 2, maybe Mom still cares about her son's well-being, and his continued health is dependent on drinking Dr. Pepper. I don't know. It depends on whether you subscribe to the more authoritarian angle or the Soylent Green-esque dystopia angle. Either way, Dad's up next, and he gives CJ his most prized possession.
Your Science State game ball.
Yeah, I was saving it for when you went to state.
More persuasion and guilt tripping. He tosses it to CJ, whose hands are too full to catch it. He fumbles it, and it rolls right under a bus tire and pops. CJ's father angrily says,
I thought I was holding all this stuff.
That ball's like a son to me.
Again reinforcing CJ's place in this family, reiterating that State U continues to interfere with the family dynamic. Episode 403, Bouquet Toss, sees Jay and Natalie completing their vows, as Sheriff Bosworth officiates.
The power vested in me by the city of Fansville, I now pronounce you fan and wife.
They kiss and the festivities begin. Joe Theismann and play-by-play announcer return to add voiceover to the bouquet toss, outlining the moves and identifying the bridesmaids lined up. There's a lot more to say about this that I'll save for later, but there's an interesting tidbit at the start of this episode. As Sheriff Bosworth is officiating, he says, "By the power vested in me by the city of Fansville," which, if you know anything about how those sort of things work, is a little weird. Usually, ordination is designated by a state-level governing body. This seems to imply that the town of Fansville exists as its own governing body? I don't know, we're like an hour into this thing. Episode 404, Transfer Portal, shows the direct continuation of the scene in 401's Return to Glory. And now Logan and Jay are joined by Sheriff Bosworth. They all stand inside of some police tape, talking down a State U football player as he's slowly approaching the portal.
Rico's about to enter the transfer portal.
Rico, you don't need to transfer.
They each take turns shouting into a megaphone that he can still have a future with State. But, like many others before him, Rico says he feels unhappy with his prospects and he intends to leave.
You're only a sophomore. There's still time.
Rico's time is now!
We learn what exactly the transfer portal does when he runs through it and a tech player appears in his place. Both Sheriff and Jay grimace and verbally express how they don't want this outsider to play for them, while Logan, the ever-reluctant one trying to assimilate back into society, looks to them and seems to mimic their reactions. This is just another instance of nonconformity, even among State U athletes. But this time it's different. It's in the presence of three key characters, Sheriff, Jay, and Logan, all at different points in their disillusionment arcs. Denial, questioning, and total acceptance, respectively. Episode 405, Missing Goalposts, picks up after the scene in 401's Return to Glory. Sheriff Bosworth is continuing to investigate the thefts, and he approaches Logan in his front yard. He's pushing his illegitimate son in a swing, which is the first time we've seen the kid since like season 2.
Howdy, Logan. Wonder if you can help me out with something.
Sure, Sheriff.
Looking for a couple of goalposts. Went missing after the big win last night.
What?
I like that the sheriff talks so casually to Logan, like they're real friends, which keeps in line with established continuity and their previous status as neighbors. It shows attention to detail. Anyway, Logan explains that the swing, which is clearly one of the stolen goalposts, is actually a Scandinavian design. He then points the sheriff in the direction of his neighbors, the Streakers.
You know what? You should check the Streakers across the street. They have a very suspicious new antenna.
You know, the Streakers. The couple that has always been across the street from CJ's family that inexplicably moved houses. Them. It's not important. No need to get heated over a continuity error.
You should check the Streakers across the street. They have a
Victory
very...
lap with the streaker.
Hey, Mr.
CJ, great game, huh?
Anyway, this episode shows us a very different side of Logan. One who will openly lie in the face of law enforcement. And more importantly, one who seems to love and support his son unconditionally. It seems like his run-in with the bogus legal system of Fansville really opened his eyes. Episode 406, Off-Season, sees all the current residents of Fansville gather inside of one of their homes, discussing what they're going to do in the off-season once State U's season ends.
It's gonna be a long off-season.
Off-season?
Jay suddenly gets super frightened, as he can't remember what happens once the season ends.
What do we do in the off-season?
But Sheriff Bosworth turns to reassure Jay, while looking directly at the camera, smiling, saying,
Relax, we don't stop existing when the season ends.
Weird. The rest of them start throwing out random ideas about what happens, and they're all really spot on.
It's not like we live in some fictional town that's part of some elaborate marketing campaign.
What would it even be for? Dr. Pepper?
Then Logan jumps the shark and won.
It's not like we're the ice cold Dr. Pepper guy.
The scene pulls back to reveal they're all inside a snow globe, a la the infamous ending to the hospital drama St. Elsewhere. And the cherry on top, they reside inside the house of the former Dr. Pepper spokesperson, Larry Culpepper, as per the shades and visor next to the snow globe. This can't be taken literally, right? No, it's a simple Easter egg and nothing more. Maybe just a sloppy retcon wink and a nod to make the fans of the old commercials happy. I mean, there's no way something this elaborate could possibly be in the mind of one guy, right? Okay, fine. I'm making this quick. I'm not going to be able to do an episode-by-episode breakdown of the nearly 30 commercials that span 4 years just for this side tangent. But that also comes down to the fact that the Larry Culpepper commercials are much more focused on character expression rather than character development, meaning they're more well-suited to the nature of commercials, where they can be played in any order at any time, and viewers can still get a grasp of who Larry is and what he's about. And who is Larry? Well, in short, he's a Dr. Pepper vendor at a college football stadium. He has a very inflated sense of self, even to the point that he goes around telling multiple people he's the person that invented the college football playoffs.
I invented the playoff. Remember the college football playoff? This whole idea of playoff is pretty much my idea.
He's dorky and awkward, and although I wouldn't use the word personable, he rarely appears to meet a stranger.
Before playoff, after playoff. Playoff party! Her house!
But as time goes on, the more things about him just become unsettling. He has this almost sensual attraction to the college football playoff trophy. He oversteps boundaries countless times, and he really likes to be plugged into every aspect of game day.
Miss, can you sign my petition? Play football.
He thinks he's the one calling the shots in the selection committee, like he's the only person responsible for that. He buys an RV on the off chance he'll convince someone to go tailgate at away games with him. He doesn't really have an identity outside of loving Dr. Pepper and loving college football. Sounds familiar, right? But that doesn't mean Larry Culpepper is the type of person to create an entire universe where everyone is just as obsessed with Dr. Pepper and college football as he is. Right? Well, let's take a look at what his real life is like. He's the main character of his own story, although it's a story nobody else wants to play along in. He's constantly ignored, stepped on, or brushed aside. In the later seasons, he recruits a small team of like-minded vendors to help him spread his message. There's Josh, Ken, Tuba Steve, Michelle, the Platypus, and actual athletes like Doug Flutie and Steve Smith. We know they're real, as they're seen interacting with other people, like in Season 3's episode Backyard Football.
Game on, Doug Flutie and Steve Smith. I'm more worried about the platypus.
We also know that they're dedicated to their jobs. But here's the thing, we only see them during game days. We never see Larry interact with any of them outside of his job. In fact, we see that he leads a rather isolating life, having set up shop beneath the stands in the stadium. This would give him ample time to just sit around and conjure up all these ridiculous ideas and complex scenarios, if only to fill the void he feels whenever that game clock finally runs out and the stand's empty. These scenarios would naturally reflect his beliefs that Dr. Pepper is God above all, and a fan's worth is defined by the fruits of their labor, which in Larry's case is absolutely true. So we've established his motive and his opportunity to confirm this hunch, but what about his means? As in, what in his world makes its way into his head? I mean, just looking at the two series side by side, there's not really any outright visual similarities that can help infer what Larry sees in his daydreams. It also absolutely rules out the theory that the two coexist in the same reality, as the entire football stadium layout is different, among other geographic changes. And it's not like there's people and things in these commercials that just reappear as is in Fansville. Oh, except... okay, I guess we have to talk about this. There are several very obvious connections between the Larry Culpepper verse and Fansville. Probably the most obvious being the blatant naming of the rival teams in the fictional town, rooting for State and Tech. They even have the same color schemes. There's also this return of the platypus mascot, which was once one of Larry's vendor recruits and now serves as the mascot for the rival team. I don't see any specific instance where the mascot upsets Larry enough to villainize him in his dreamscape. The best explanation I could come up with is that in Fansville, the platypus is worn by Ramon, who is characterized as largely a good guy with a kind heart, sort of an outsider looking in, and Larry wanted one of his good friends to have a prominent role early on in his daydreams. Speaking of which, look at the similarities between Sheriff Bosworth's office and Larry's bunker beneath the stadium, as seen in Season 1's episode Selection Committee. He's actively solving questions, connecting dots, plotting out how this football season will go. Just look at the similar ways Sheriff Bosworth stands in front of his clue board. It's nearly identical. Sheriff Bosworth is Larry's stand-in, his OC, someone he can shape the town through. In little ways, Fansville isn't just a town where a bunch of Larry Culpepper think-alikes can gather. It's an escapist fantasy where Larry gets to feel like a hero, a celebrated member of the community who's friends with the residents. It gives him everything he's been missing in the real world. You could just say a lot of this was Dr. Pepper reusing assets to cut costs and maybe throw in a wink to its previous ad campaign. But then I'd say you're not fun at parties, and I don't want to hang out with you. So going off the assumption that this is all valid, what would actually cause Larry to create this entire fictional world? Right off the bat, I'm hesitant to just slap the word hallucination onto Fansville and call it a day. It's a bit cheap to make the last hour and change null and void by saying the equivalent of, "It was all a dream, ooh." Not only that, but dream theories are often so malleable and base their evidence on such loose, ill-fitting evidence that practically anything you want can get a cheap explanation under them. Nothing has to make perfect sense because he's crazy, oh. I don't buy it. No, I wanted to actually figure out if Larry could reasonably be able to create such vivid hallucinations based on the most concrete evidence I have. A half-assed, unprofessional medical diagnosis. Larry is imaginative and likes to be at the center of his own story, and it can be argued that some of those scenarios are played up in his head. But he's a bit off kilter. There's something behind his eyes that's just not quite right. I'm not saying he's dangerous, but it's something worth bringing up that his fandom is not necessarily normal. I started doing some light research on what exactly his symptoms were, and here's what I surmised. He's a bit socially handicapped, and doesn't necessarily know proper social cues or how to interact with fans in the stands.
This whole idea of playoffs is pretty much my idea.
He's often prone to loud outbursts or interruptions. He has a bit of an inflated ego, which borders on delusion or a sense of grandeur.
I invented the college football playoff.
That's not true, Larry.
Well, I got evidence.
He also canonically can see numbers in front of him, and he's also seen frequently fidgeting and moving his hands around a lot. Keeping in mind that I'm not a professional on any of this stuff, and my research barely extends past page 1 of Google, but to the best of my ability, I was able to narrow down Larry's condition to either schizophrenia or high-functioning autism. Addressing autism, the National Health Service identifies several signs in adults as to include not understanding social rules, such as not talking over people, avoiding eye contact, getting too close to people, noticing small details or patterns that others do not, having a keen interest in certain subjects or activities, and liking to plan things carefully. Adults with autism can find it very hard to understand what others are thinking and feeling, may get anxious in social situations, may seem blunt or rude without meaning to, and may find it very hard to deviate from a routine or make new friends. It lines up with a lot of Larry's behavior in canon episodes, but it doesn't really explain the hallucination angle and how he'd be able to think of Fansville in such a detailed way. That's aside from the fact that in the aforementioned St. Elsewhere Snow Globe finale, it's canon that the show world exists within the mind of an autistic child, but there's several reasons that show's ending is so infamous, and the implausibility of that scenario is definitely one of them. As for the schizophrenia theory, we have sort of the opposite problem. Schizophrenia can be defined by someone's inability to interpret reality normally, which shows itself as any combination of hallucinations, delusions, and extremely disordered thinking and behavior that can impair daily functioning. People suffering from schizophrenia can believe they're being harmed or harassed, believe certain gestures are directed at them, or believe they have an exceptional ability or fame. They also often experience hallucinations, both visual and auditory, which can have the full force and impact of a normal, tangible experience. However, this doesn't explain what symptoms he doesn't experience. There's no clear sign that he has any functional impairments, including hygiene neglect, any lacking of emotion, or losing interest in everyday activities, or socially withdrawing from said activities. Either way you slice it, the effects of Larry's diagnosis impact him on a daily basis. Larry exists as an island unto himself. No fan can match his fervor, and nothing in his job can fulfill him as much as he wants. He can't connect with anyone on the same level, so there's no wonder why he would want to create this perfect place to escape to. But even with all of that, Fansville is still a story about fans looking to escape, a way to leave town. It's kind of sad, actually, to love something so much and to get beaten down time after time. People not giving you a second thought, that eventually the safe haven you've created to reinforce the things you love and tell you you're doing good work and it's making people happy, to see that world's residents start to become self-aware to the point that they want to escape your fictional utopia because they're so miserable. That's gotta be heartbreaking. That's gotta be some form of self-doubt creeping in, infecting your happiest thoughts until one day you forget what even made you happy in the first place. And all you see is this shell of who you once were, and all you feel is regret that you even had that happy moment in the first place, as all it did was lead you here to this painful reminder. Part of me wants to not believe this theory, if just for the fact that Larry Culpepper gets to retire his name in peace, having amassed a team of passionate vendors like him as he spends each and every Saturday tailgating and drinking Dr. Pepper with his friends. You know, I truly believe that whether Fansville exists as a cautionary tale to Larry's pursuit of his passion, or if it's an absolute bold-faced mockery of it, maybe we can all find, like most things in life, that there's a healthy middle between the two states of being. The superfan and the disillusioned fan. Maybe there, we will find peace. But that's just a theory. A game theory! Anyway, thank you for coming to my needless TED Talk on a fun tangent that may or may not necessarily be canon to the entire rest of this essay. Let's get back to the much simpler, more upbeat world of Fansville Season 4. Season 4 seeks to systematically destroy the story world in as little time as possible. The veil dividing the world of Fansville and the real world is shattered at the start of the very first trailer for the season, as we are directly addressed as an audience by characters on different levels, including everyone from the narrator and the play-by-play announcers all the way down to Sheriff Bosworth himself, looking directly into the camera to say, "Everything is fine." Sheriff is completely and purposefully in the dark, acting as some sort of in-between for whoever is puppeteering the plights of Fansville's residents. Playing nice with his Disney World-esque everything is fine grin and making small talk with them in between arrests. The show also just as quickly becomes a caricature of what it once was, introducing increasingly ridiculous plot lines and flanderizing its remaining cast to the point where you really have to make an effort to read the subtext beneath all the affability and general self-awareness of these characters to grasp any semblance of the ongoing plot. But a big part of me wants to believe that's completely intentional. The show of Fansville is on its last legs, and it knows it. Several of its key characters have either left the show or have meaningfully completed their arcs and broken free from the system in one way or another. With more and more residents becoming disillusioned to the authoritarian dystopia that is the city of Fansville, we literally see the overseers in this world intervene to course correct the story engine in one last desperate grasp for control. The rulebook is broken completely open as the fourth wall is completely torn down. What starts out as simple narration in the second person or commentating over Jay and Natalie's wedding soon starts to look like a pattern. They start to overstep their boundaries and begin audibly predicting future plot points and their personal opinions on certain characters. Just listen to the plot points being teased for Season 5, as seen in the yet-to-be-discussed Episode 407 finale.
Will CJ finally learn to catch a football? Will the fans have enough Dr. Pepper to get through the off-season?
All very surface-level beats to help maintain the narrative problematic. That's all before the narrator openly threatens to remove Logan from the show, since he's the most recent person to have become disillusioned.
Should this guy be written off the show?
It's all just a desperate ploy to retain as many residents as possible, despite several fans already leaving Fansville. This reaches even further, directly influencing the story world. For instance, take a look at episode 403, Bouquet Toss. Do you notice anything strange? Look at the bridesmaids. Trisha, Becky.
Trisha's wide open, here comes the throw. Oh, Becky with the pick!
We as an audience have never seen or heard of these people before. Same thing goes for the groomsmen. These are supposed to be the most important people in Jay and Natalie's lives, and yet we've never seen them. You would think that some of the more familiar faces in town would be present, like CJ's mom, Logan, heck, even the doctor. People that we've seen the bride and groom hang out with on a regular basis. And yet, they don't even seem to be in attendance. This all coupled with the introduction of the play-by-play announcers, my theory is that in order to uphold the idea that Jay and Natalie are Fansville's model couple, they've supplanted all original guests with the equivalent of yes men, ensuring that this marriage goes off without a hitch. And maybe the happy couple will find some more suitable friends to spend time with. Despite this intervention, many of our remaining characters are quickly starting to slip through the cracks in this world. Logan, for instance, blatantly crossed the boundary he set for himself back in episode 110's Unusual Suspects.
Of course I want the trophy, I'm a fan, but I'm not a criminal.
Having seen the other side of justice, he's starting to realize what the systems in place are actually there for, and so he retaliates. But we see he didn't just steal to steal. No, that's out of character. See, he's a regular old Jean Valjean, stealing for the betterment of a child. He builds a swing for his bastard son so he can start to rekindle the relationship that was once so fraught, a relationship that he nearly lost when Lily left him and presumably split custody at the start of season 3. Jay and Natalie finally start to show signs of disillusionment, and they're hit a lot harder than a lot of the other residents. In the presence of the dissenters, in episode 406, Off-Season, the realization hits Jay that he can't remember what they do in the titular off-season.
What do we do in the off-season?
Despite the couple's initial fears being assuaged by everyone laughing the implications of that off, the dread will likely sit and fester if its replay in the unofficial season 5 teaser has any validity.
I don't know what we do in the off-season.
That, coupled with the earth-shattering revelation of the transfer portal and the seeming supernatural vortex that keeps the residents of Fansville trapped in the town, it's safe to say that he, and by proxy Natalie, are well on their way to becoming completely self-aware. And finally, after years of fighting with his family and being torn between tradition and passion, CJ finally leaves Fansville. It's a lighthearted scene with one last dig at his inadequacy when he fails to catch a ball, but that doesn't stop him from getting on that bus for Coastal U. As he says himself,
Coastal U is where I belong.
This leaves a noticeable dent in his family, as his mom grows closer again to his dad, as she becomes dependent on the stability like he's been known to need. It's unfortunate that CJ's send-off is done with so little fanfare. He's become more and more of an outcast, not just because of his choice of school and sport, but also because of his inability to measure up to fan standards. Even though his mom couldn't be saved, at least CJ found a way to save himself. You know, I'm starting to realize that despite all the weird self-awareness, this season is the first time that we've seen all the main characters of Fansville together in one place. The ones that are left, I mean. And if you're not counting the trailers, we only see that in episode 406's Off-Season, the last chronological episode of the series to date. They seem like real friends, gathered in CJ's family's house as, hey, no, that doesn't line up. Now the shape is all wrong. Well, the wall colors are the same. Hang on. In an effort to prove that I'm truly the world's biggest fan of Fansville, I wanted to take the time to map out the entire town, including the suburbs where all of our main characters live. That latter part took no joke almost as much time to put together as the analysis for the rest of the show. It seems like something that'd be incredibly simple, right? And when pieced together could provide some insight into the neighborhood layout, which might explain some character dynamics on a deeper level, show who might be interacting with who more often, and maybe even reveal how two characters' arcs influence each other just due to proximity. But no! I don't know what it is. Maybe it's shooting at 3 different backlots. Maybe it's filmed on location and they lost the rights to film in certain neighborhoods between seasons. But other than the very obvious story reason as to why Logan moves, no other characters can justify their random house moves. Not to mention the geography doesn't make sense. The thread starts unraveling in episode 405's Missing Goalposts, when Logan points Sheriff Bosworth in the direction of the Streaker's house.
You know what? You should check the Streakers across the street.
Except that's not the Streaker's house. That's the Streaker's house. And since that's the Streaker's house, then that should be CJ's family's house. But that can't be CJ's family's house, because that's already CJ's family's house. Do you understand why this is so frustrating? If the suburbs had a consistent layout, that could pave the way to fleshing out these character relationships in a deeper way for dedicated fans like myself. That's not even to mention the basic continuity errors. There's one noticeable instance of this in the entire show. It's the mayor's foam fingers throughout season 2 he wears during his speech at the 150th anniversary tailgate. He wears single finger gloves in the official trailer, and in the sections of Big Fan Begins, when on stage and when confronting Sheriff Bosworth. He wears 2 finger gloves in Big Fan Rising just before Big Fan attacks, and he wears a full hand glove in the tag for the same episode, as he stands up from behind his cover. I mean, are you kidding me? Where's the attention to detail? Come on, Dr. Pepper, how stupid do you think your audience is? Do you really think someone wasn't going to criticize you heavily for your lack of care in some innocuous shots in the 2nd season of your elaborate marketing scheme by taking you down in a 90-minute video essay analysis? Unbelievable. Where do we go from here? Not just with this essay. I do believe I've said quite literally everything someone can say about Fansville. But mainly, where do we take this story? With most of Fansville's residents either already left the show or seriously doubting the illusion of tranquility, what more actual stories do we have left? Civil war. I'm serious. We've seen some residents fight the system before, but I'm talking about a full-scale assault on Fansville. Think the portal scene in Avengers Endgame, but with transfer portals. Julia and Ramon come back with an army of tech fans to liberate the town, and Ramon is wearing the sick new nanotech mascot suit, and then Lily tries to make amends with Logan, but no, he's already on his way to confront the sheriff, his now oldest friend, to give him one chance to make amends for acting out the will of Fansville's big brother. He turns to Logan and is like, it's a shame to see such a big fan turn against his team, but then Logan's all, I don't want to just be a big fan of the winning team, Sheriff. I want to be a fan for the ones I love, no matter what. But just as he's about to fight the sheriff, bam! Bodysuit fan is back. He jumps through the window and is all like, go state? More like no state. And then he's all like, I was the sheriff's good doppelganger all along, and I'm gonna stop him. And the sheriff is like, I don't think so. And then maybe we see CJ as he walks through downtown and comes across a squish football, and on the inside he finds up pieces to a map. Yeah, it's his mom trying to lead him to find her because she left too. And maybe Jay and Natalie show up, and they're gonna help their friend's son find her, and... screw it. You know, I can't tell you exactly what I thought I was going to find in all of this. I thought maybe I'd be able to find some secret affair between the residents using background clues and dialogue hints. That case got broken open in the first half of Season 1. You can argue that everything past that jumps the shark, and I wouldn't blame you. At a certain point, you start to wonder if what you find are logical reinforcements to your thesis, or you're making assumptions just to confirm your own biases. It's amazing how quickly an audience's interpretation can contort a story's original message into something it may not be, or something it never was intended to be, or even into something that it logically should never be, considering the company you're saying is evil and dystopian is still trying to convince you to buy their product. At the end of all this, I can't even tell you whether it was worth it. It feels like it because I feel the need to justify all the time that went into this, but like Fansville's residents, was trying to understand this little town and its mysteries and exercise in futility. Come football season 2022, this development will just reset itself in ever-increasingly self-aware little shorts, as Fansville continues to uphold its status quo. Because no matter how much I try to convince you or myself that Dr. Pepper has become incredibly self-aware and put this elaborate ad campaign out there as a way to warn everyone of their nefarious schemes to take over the world, I know it's just a disingenuous way to shove as many Dr. Pepper cans in front of my face as possible, all with the logo facing out. I mean, at least it's better than whatever the hell they got cooking now. But that's the worst part. I don't even like Dr. Pepper. I don't drink soda, and even now I still don't want any. I don't know why this ad campaign had to be so elaborate that it lost its message along the way so dramatically. To be perfectly honest, I only got mildly interested in this topic because I had a day off work, and I saw it was a clear parody of something like Riverdale, which I unironically ate up. I don't know what lessons could actually be learned from this. Maybe we should learn to not take things at face value. Or maybe that continuity mistakes are the worst thing to have ever been created, and mistakes this blatant should not be permissible at this scale. Or maybe that capitalism and corporate consolidation will be the death of us all, slowly whittling us down into poor facsimiles of what we once were, beholden to these little reprieves in our little lives to find any meaning, reprieves that are handed out at the whim of the corporate elite. Maybe when we realize our value is not correlative to our utility and our ability to have a point with everything we do, we'll finally make substantial change. Maybe it's time to seek the unknown and find value in life's journeys that call to us, not those we wait to be handed to us.
Or maybe that's just what they want you to think.
Hi, it's me from the future. I got a different mic. I'm writing this addendum literally days before this video was supposed to go out. Dr. Pepper just released a teaser for the upcoming 5th season of Fansville, taking the naming conventions of some of history's most coveted pieces of cinema, like Fan4stick. Fan5ville doesn't just continue all of our main character storylines, but it surprisingly also seems to confirm some of my weirdest and wildest predictions. I am shaking with excitement right now, and that is not even a joke at this point. First off, miniseries staples make a return this season. We've got lingo swapping.
Did you just fansplain me?
Jay's freak out face. Logan just repeatedly getting shat on. And celebrity cameos.
Come on down to Fansville Foam Finger Warehouse. We'll get you fitted for the perfect foam finger.
But also we get new revelations to some long-standing theories. As always, it's unclear how much of this teaser was actual shots from episodes later in the season versus what was shot just for this. However, we can surmise some of the key plot points for the season. The teaser starts off with Sheriff Bosworth in some makeshift crow's nest, like he's scouting out a battlefield. We get some more confirmation of Fansville's geography, as the terrain around the water tower is all forest, separating the dome of Fansville from the rest of the town. Based on the gloomy skies, I can assume Boz is witnessing Encroachment 2.0. We also get our first canon map of Fansville, and it's literally a region bigger than the size of Texas. So not only does it exist as its own governing body, but it seems like this fan-based system has seemed to overtake the entire continental United States. CJ's dad is hiding in a bunker of some sort, with his own conspiracy board trying to make sense of teams shifting around.
East Coast teams on the West Coast, there's West Coast teams in the Midwest.
Here, it seems like teams and fans compose the entire makeup of a given region. He literally says,
conference lines are being redrawn and Fansville's being ripped apart.
Out of all the things that I predicted was going to happen next season, Civil War was never even seriously on my radar. Anyway, we see this sort of fracturing in action when on the TV, some fans are watching State U go against a team that we've never heard of before, the Cougars. Again, CJ's dad seems to be leading some coalition against the conference shakeups, rallying a bunch of angry fans with his conservative, traditional values.
What happened to tradition?
So hold on to your Dr. Pepper.
Side note, where's the actual government leadership in this town? Has CJ's dad just usurped a mayoral position? Because I think I've seen this film before. This ignores the more obvious question about what happens to Tech. Was the reason for this shift a means of overseer control? Because Fansville is losing too many residents? This is entire cultures being moved around like puzzle pieces on a dime. Ignoring the larger socio-economical ramifications of all of that, let's catch up with my boy Logan. We see firsthand that the first consequence of the redistricting has been to ostracize Logan.
Nothing.
Sorry, Logan, you live in tech country now.
But I hate tech!
Not necessarily by, quote, writing him off the show, but in a more insidious, inconspicuous way. He has been othered. And look who's doing the othering. Sheriff Bosworth, gleefully and unapologetically planting a tech country sign in Logan's front yard. Not only that, but later we see him talk into his radio about regulating the number of NIL partnerships Bama quarterback and Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young has. Why does Sheriff Bosworth have that much power to regulate the propaganda? Is that why he wanted to be in a commercial? And lastly is the interpersonal relationship developments. Primarily, let's focus on CJ's mom and Jay and Natalie. We see CJ's mom actually gaining some independence this season. When she's not sitting passively watching her husband start a tyrannical overthrow of the government, she's meeting with dissenters like Logan in secret. She's getting that fervent spirit back, like she did in season 1 when hanging out with Natalie. Speaking of whom, she and Jay are seemingly in a blissful domesticated life together. She's traded her diner uniform for something more laid back. However, Jay is still reeling from his moment of self-awareness, and he's becoming frustrated with the ever-changing landscape of his world. Natalie seems to have regressed, and instead just wants to feed Jay his hush-hush juice. She lists off all the wonderful varieties of Dr. Pepper, and he promptly loses his mind.
You want Dr. Pepper, Diet Dr. Pepper, Dr. Pepper Cherry, Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar, Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda?
This probably connects to what I think is the scene with the most serious implications going forward. It looks to take place sometime in the near future, as all of our fans are wearing different clothes for like the first time in the series. Natalie sides with CJ's dad, antagonizing Jay, saying,
I don't even know you anymore!
Jay stands befuddled, drinking an off-brand Dr. Pepper drink, Dr. Seltzer. If you're not freaking out right now, I don't think you understand the weight of this addition to the lore. Take a look at the writing on the can. 22 flavors. This, taking it into account with the older design of the can, I truly think that this is the in-universe predecessor to Dr. Pepper, the drink that made fans of Fansville. Dr. Pepper's invasion and subtle additional flavor to the local drink changed the course of the town's history. Was that 23rd flavor mind control juice, Dr. Pepper? Better yet, look at the colors on the can. Tech fans aren't the enemy. They're survivors of a bygone era. No wonder State hates Tech so much. The story of fans escaping Fansville for tech should instead be viewed as a homecoming story. Jay getting his hands on the Dr. Seltzer and swapping out his color palette really seemed to suggest his disillusionment arc is going to conclude by the end of this season. As the title of the teaser describes, chaos is coming to Fansville. Fans are turning against each other, fans are becoming radicalized, and strangest of all, fans are starting to get sick of Dr. Pepper. I don't know about you, but this feels like endgame level stakes here. The series has already outlasted Larry Culpepper's run, and it's hard to say how much longer it can last before the big DP decides to pull the plug on it for good. But whatever happens, I'm gonna finally rest, watch the sun rise on a grateful universe, knowing that I successfully laid the groundwork for cataloging every single historical and cultural facet of the Dr. Pepper town. And everything going forward is just a logical, or even at this point, utterly insane, extension of what's come before. I figured you out, Dr. Pepper. Good game.
But like for real, who is Bodysuit Fan? I swear he's the key to all of this. Come back next week for part 2.